Hi, my name is Laura Gray and I am a member of the Brisbane Club Wine Committee, and I'm here today to introduce you to virtual tours of famous wine regions around the world. We have a series of videos which will be complimentary to the wine packs that you have purchased from the club. And any queries that you have about any of the wines that we are tasting or that you are tasting, please don't hesitate to email the club Cellar. Joao is on hand to help, and also any of the wine committee as well. If you ever run into them into the club, more than happy to answer any queries that you have about the French, Italian, Australian varieties that we have on offer in this fantastic series. So thank you and enjoy.
Good afternoon all. So we'd like to introduce today about the Burgundies and also the Pinots from Australia. I will explain how to open a bottle of wine, of course, how to serve and how to use the correct glasses too. And also I think Mr. Corrigan afterwards will do a quick explanation about Burgundy and the Pinots from Australia. I believe, as growing in Europe, a bit different in Australia. The way we learn things of the other side of the world is a bit different than here. So I always believe when we open a bottle of Pinot Noir, we never decanted the Pinot because Pinot doesn't need to be decanted. Also, when you open the bottle of Burgundy or whatever, I don't think you should rotate the bottle at all. So you need to leave the bottle straight and you peel all the seal and take all off and put the corkscrew on nice and firm, push it out. The correct way is this way, not this way, and therefore this correct glass also to use is a nice roundish Burgundy glass, and I believe Mr. Corrigan believes he's the correct do it.
I like them.
Yes, and Pinot Noir usually we serve a bit chilled also because I think it's appropriate to do that, especially in the summer and winter time. I think the room temperature will be enough.
Maybe to European room temperature, which means here in Brisbane we have to chill it a little bit. Do you think?
I think so too. Yeah. A bit cooler because
maybe 18 to 20 degrees, something like that, which probably means for a lot of the time in Brisbane it needs to be in the fridge just a little bit.
I believe so. That's what I do at home. My wines is always a bit in the fridge, maybe put an hour or two before we start drinking. Even the reds, the heavy reds, we do the same.
Yeah, me too. I think all wine, even the older reds, need to have the refreshment quality, and if you chill them a little, it gives you that refreshment that if they were on a warmer temperature they just wouldn't have. So I very much agree with you about
yes that. And also I think the very important is the correct glass to use it. So therefore that's why I was mentioned before, to open a Burgundy is not necessary to be decanted because the glasses you use, they're nice and roundish, so when you put the wine there, develops very well on the glass.
Absolutely. Well, and the great thing about Burgundy, which I suppose, and Pinot Noir are really in say contrast to Bordeaux and Cabernet Sauvignon, is that the thing that makes Pinot Noir and Burgundy so attractive is the sort of sensual aroma. They have a lovely aroma, and they don't have the serious full-bodied sort of oaky length of taste that you get in Cabernet and Bordeaux. And the whole enjoyable thing about Pinot Noir and Burgundy is the roundness and softness of the taste.
That's right. What about the colour?
Well, it's a lighter, I think you can see, well, we've got, look at the wine we have in front of us here, and I can do the old white background thing, and you can see that Pinot Noir always has a paler colour, and these have both got a lovely, ruby, it's quite a, lovely rich colour, but it's a much paler colour, much softer than what you'd ever find with a Shiraz or Tempranillo, or definitely Cabernet Sauvignon. I think it probably has the darkest colour of all of the red varieties that you find commonly. I mean, if you really try hard, you can see some red varieties like Saperavi and so on that are a bit obscure, but they're really, really black red. But yeah, Pinot Noir and Burgundies are always inherently a lighter colour.
I believe also, but it's very interesting to see because if we go to New Zealand, Central Otago, Pinots, usually the colors they're much darker also.
Yeah, particularly Central Otago. That's true. They get this amazing long cold ripeness in Central Otago, and yet it's cold weather, but there's high ultraviolet light, and so they really get this very powerful, intense intensity of Pinot Noir character there on the Central Otago wines. Arguably, some of that flavour sometimes can be too much front of mouth without enough length, but they certainly get amazing colour in Central Otago.
But also, I think for many years I've been drinking wine anyway, with a bit of experience in there. I think, to me, a nice Pinot always will be nice in colour, lighter than the heavy style.
Yeah.
So I always had some people talk about the Burgundy, the Pinot from New Zealand, the Pinot from Australia, and there are a little bit difference between these three wines. And I believe in New Zealand, let's say Central Otago, sometimes I found Pinots from there too heavy, too rich.
I agree.
And I believe Marlborough better Pinot is more style, the Ron, than anything else.
And that's one of the great sort of tri-nation test matches you can have. You can line up Australian, New Zealand and French Pinot Noir and do a tasting. I mean, tonight in the pack that you get from the club, we have 2 Burgundies and 1 Australian Pinot Noir. Because the red grape of Burgundy is Pinot Noir, the white grape being Chardonnay, but tonight we're just dealing in red Burgundy and an Australian Pinot Noir. So it's a good comparison. They're all within a year of each other. We have 17 and 16 vintages, so they're pretty young. The first wine, which we're tasting in the order, is the Gevrey Chambertin. This one, I'll just hold it up so you can see the label there. It's a 2017 from quite a well-known producer in Burgundy. One of the principles about Burgundy is that when you move from just being a wine that's blended across a bigger area in Burgundy, all the wines then start carrying the name of the village, and in this case the village is Gevrey Chambertin, and that's what this first wine is. The second wine we have then is moving up the scale in terms of expense and in rating of Burgundy, and it's also from a village. In this case it's from Corrigan, which is another village in Burgundy, a bit to the south of Gevrey Chambertin. But this time the Corrigan is from a vineyard that has a Grand Cru rating. And so going back some centuries in Burgundy, a rating system was set up. And whereas the first wine is Gevrey Chambertin, but no particular rating of the vineyard, so it's known as a village or village wine, you then can move to a Premier Cru, and then to the top of the pyramid you would come to the very few number of Grand Cru. And this second wine is a Grand Cru from Corrigan. And the third wine is a pretty well-known producer in Australia, which is the By Far brand. And this is from the Geelong region, which is to the west of Melbourne. And this is actually the Toupret individual wine by Afar. And you can read there about Toupret and the meaning of it. There's always been a lot of interest where vines have to compete with each other. It makes them struggle a bit, and that often means that you get more intense fruit at the time of harvest. And so close planting of Pinot Noir in the vineyard's always been quite a fashionable thing to do, and that's the meaning of this name here on the By Far wine. To the tasting, and you can try these for yourself. You can open all three at once, I guess, and try them. You'll see that the Gevrey Chambertin there has a savoury red cherry and a bit of generous ripe fruit on it. And to taste it, you'll see some acidity, and there's some texture on the wine that gives it some interest, which you don't really find on the Australian style Pinot Noir. When you move to the Corrigan, you'll see here that there's a much more savoury red cherry, but very intense flavour. The interesting thing about the Grand Cru, I think you'll find, is if you sip it and swallow it, the flavour will hang around after you've swallowed it for a longer period of time, the so-called persistence test, and that's a sign of the greater intensity and incidentally, the more expensive price tag.
Series wine, Grand Crus and Premier Crus, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, they're
different.
hard to find, very expensive. Just to show you now, if you wanted to, you'll have to do this yourself and study it. But for example, there are maps that are published of the Burgundy region with all the sub-regions in it. And then within the sub-regions, you actually publish individual rated vineyards, and they actually colour them up differently with Grand Cru and Premier Cru. And the idea of this little target here is to show that the very centre of that chart is the tiny small amount of Grand Cru, and the big circle around the outside represents the much higher volume of the village and generic Burgundy wine. When you move to the by far, you should notice a pretty big, rich, almost sweet-fruited, much more raspberry silkiness about that wine, but it won't have the savoury length and the, I guess, the power and the persistence of the two French wines. And which is best? Well, you could argue that for a long time, but that's the whole purpose of you buying the three wines and doing a comparative test yourself. And
You can tell the difference.
we hope you enjoy them.